Hello everybody and welcome to this video. This video will explain the indicator scorecard, which has been designed to display as much data about your favorite indicators all in one compact chart with lots of data. The scorecard displays the candlestick color on up to 6 different time frames and up to 5 different indicators for each time frame. Their inputs, their values, whether or not they are above or below the price or midpoint, depending on what you're looking at, and the slope, and whether or not they are divergent from price. So, let's begin. First of all, I'm going to make this bigger. Oh, Ethereum's going for it. Something just happened. So first of all, I'm going to make the table bigger. And I'm going to set this time frame here, time frame number 6. I'm going to set that to 1. Okay, wow, something's really kicking off in crypto. So the time frame has been set to 1. And now you will see that represented here. This is now changed to 1. This is now showing us indicator values on the 1 minute time frame. Now we're going to use RSI and a simple moving average to explain these indicators right now. So I'm going to scroll down here and I'm going to use this bottom indicator right here where it says EMA cross. I'm going to set this to RSI with a length of 14. Okay, accept that, and I'll just check that we have a 14 period RSI. Yes. Okay, now I'm going to check we have a 50 period moving average. No, we don't. Let's get that to 50. Okay. Right. First thing first. I'm going to hide all of the indicators so I can explain it one by one. It'll be really simple. First, we're going to look at this time frame column here. We are looking at the 1 minute, the 5 minute, the 15 minute, the 60 minute, the 4 hour, and the daily time frame. You can change those to any time frames you like here in the settings. So I like to put the biggest time frame at the top and get smaller. Again, you can do whatever you like. So the color represents the candlestick. As you can see, we're looking at a 1 minute chart. The candle is green. So this number here is green. There we go. It just flipped to red. It's very quick to update. So I'll now add in the next column. This one's pretty simple. The second column is the indicator name and the inputs for that indicator. So that's exactly what it says it is. It shows you the name and the inputs of the indicator if it uses them. So in the settings, this looks like, for example, here we have time frame 1. The top is a simple moving average with a length of 50. The simple moving average does not use a second or third input, so we don't need them. In the case of an RSI, we'll go down here, this is the bottom one here. In the case of the RSI, if I want to use an overbought and oversold condition, I will put it here. So let's say I think an RSI value of 70 is overbought and an oversold condition of, let's go 30 here is oversold. I can put those in, and that will show up here with this little blocked arrow. Okay, that just means it's oversold. So the color of this column, of the indicators in this column, represent the position of the indicator relative to price, if it's an indicator which would be overlaid on the chart, or the midpoint if it's an oscillator. So for the case of a simple moving average, which we can see here, SMA 50 on the 1 minute, we can see that the price is below the indicator value, so this is red. Likewise, here the RSI is below its midpoint, which is 50, therefore it's red. If a candlestick or an indicator is exactly the same value as the midpoint, it would display as yellow, or in the case of the candlestick, if the candlestick has not moved from the previous candlestick, it will be yellow. In the case of a moving average crossover or cross under, which we can see here, you can choose various indicators here, SMA, EMA, RSI, RFI, MACD, etc. If you choose a cross, then the color is based upon whether or not the first SMA is above or below the second SMA. So in this case, the SMA 8 is below the SMA 21 on the daily time frame. Therefore, this is red. Now, it actually happens that on this candlestick, on the most recent daily candlestick, SMA 8 crossed under the SMA 21. That's why we see this cross under in big writing. Okay, if you have a cross, for example, a crossover, a cross under indicator that has not crossed on this candlestick, it simply says what they are here with the indicator name and the inputs here. So we can see that the 15-minute EMA 12 is below the 15-minute EMA 26, but it did not cross under on the most recent candlestick. If you don't want to use a indicator, you can choose none here. I recommend that you set the lowest indicator per time frame to none, because if you don't, it will show an ugly box. So that's just to keep it looking nice. By the way, I know this is really big. I would usually keep it smaller. You can set that here. Let's have a look at the next column, which is the value column. So the value column shows the value of the indicator from its time frame. Pretty simple stuff. In the case of an EMA cross, it's subtracting the second from the first. So you can see that the 12 is below the 26. So we have this negative number here. The color of the value column is determined by the slope of the indicator. So, as we can see here, the 1 minute SMA 50 is sloping way down, so we can see that the value here is red. The RSI, as we can see here, the RSI is sloping way up, so we can see that the value here is green. Even though it's below 50, the trajectory is up. The fourth column is the divergence column. Shows you the percentage of divergent indicator values from price values over the range set in the settings here, where it says divergences. So what it's doing is it's looking at every candlestick from this many candlesticks ago to this many candlesticks ago, and it's comparing them to the candlestick before it, and it's asking, is the indicator value higher than its previous value at the same time as the price is lower than its previous value? If that's true, then you have a positive divergence, and it will increment the number here as a percentage of the range. So in reverse, if the indicator value through this range, so in this case it's doing this calculation 10 times from 5 to 14 candlesticks ago, if the candlestick value is lower than the value one candlestick before it, at the same time as the price being above the candlestick before it, that would be negative divergence, and it would count as a negative. In this case, it would be -10 because there are 10 candlesticks in this range. So it's doing that calculation every time, and then it's subtracting the amount of negative divergences from the amount of positive divergences through that range and giving you a number. So if it's 100, it would be 100% positively divergent. If it's -100, it's completely negatively divergent. Okay, to explain the coloring system of the divergence column properly, I'm actually going to use PineScript here to show you exactly what's going on. It's a little bit complicated, but you have to imagine the cumulative plot, if you will, say for example of the RSI, right? We have a cumulative. It's not cumulative actually, but it's a series that the previous number is used to plot the next number, right? So you can imagine, let me show you here. So say for example we have a plot. Let's use the RSI. Let's call it RSI. We'll say RSI, and it's using close with a length of 14. Okay, great. Now we're going to make a variable called d, which is going to be the difference in the RSI from its previous value. So what we're going to do is RSI subtract RSI1, and then we're going to plot d. Okay, add that to the chart, and what you get is more like it's a histogram. I mean, it's going to be plotted as a line, but it makes more sense if you plot it here as a histogram. Okay, so you have this value that's oscillating above and below 0. So you can imagine the divergence of the color of the divergence values here. We're looking at, imagine you've taken the most recent divergence number and you've subtracted the one before it, and what you have is this sort of histogram looking chart. Then what we do is add Bollinger Bands to it. So I mean, we can do it. Okay, so RSIBB equals TA.BB. We're going to put in the series, which is D. That's the blue histogram that we can see, with a length of 4,000. That's almost the longest that you can use. Makes sense to me. And then a multiplier of 2. It's a standard deviation, right? Now we're going to plot. We need a. Let's see. I think it's middle, upper, lower. Yeah, middle, upper, lower. So we're going to go M for middle, U for upper, L for lower. Then we're going to plot the upper, and we're going to plot the lower as well, and we're going to have them both as yellow. So I'm going to add those to the chart now. So now you can see we have a range, upper and lower range. Okay. Now, what we're doing for the color is we're putting the value into a color dot from gradient, which basically means it's a function which allows you to use 3 colors, and it makes a gradient out of these colors. Okay, so we're using the 3 Bollinger Band values here to define the gradient of the color for each of the divergence numbers. Okay, so if the divergent value is at or below, for example, the lower Bollinger Band, it's going to be red. If it's at or above the high Bollinger Band, it's going to be green. And if it's somewhere in the middle, it will be yellow. So that's the technical explanation for the coloring of the divergence number. And just so you know, the value uses a similar method to measure slope. Okay, but again, we're using the difference, not the, for example, the RSI itself. We're using the change in values of the RSI. Now, if you don't want oranges, if you only want to have 3 colors, then you can use simple slope coloring method here, simple. And that will get rid of all of the shades of orange, and it will leave you with just red and green and occasionally yellow. And that's true for both the value column and the divergence column. You see nans here just because it's trying to look back 14 days ago on a 1-minute chart, and 1-minute charts don't have that much data. An important thing to consider here is that you should be using a 1-minute chart for this. The reason for that is that it's looking at the way that it's been coded is it will calculate the higher time frame indicator plots using the chart time frame you're on. So what this means is that you need to use a chart which is appropriately can divide the higher time frames. So the higher time frames should be divisible by the chart time frame that you're on. So for example, if I were to use a 3-minute chart here, it would get the 5-minute setting confused because 5 cannot be divided by 3 into an integer. So I know this is a kind of complicated indicator, that's why I made this video. I hope it's helpful. It's a bit of a beast, but very useful. I like to keep it a little bit smaller than this. It's a bit too big here. So if you have any questions on this indicator, feel free to ask. There are some probably more concise explanations of exactly what goes into the coloring and the calculations of all this on the store page. It's the indicator scorecard. Anything that you don't want to have plotted, you can hide, make it as small as you like. So, thank you everybody, and have a great day.